Mychal Ginsburg is the co-founder of Legion Paper, and today Mychal will be speaking with Mychal Mitchell, the founder of Iona Handcrafted Books. Iona specializes in heirloom-quality handcrafted leather journals and photo albums using tree-free Legion bamboo cover stock, Indian handmade hemp paper, and reclaimed leathers. I want to toss this right away over to Mychal and Mychal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Before we get started, I just want to say something about you, Mychal, because these last couple of weeks have been hell for you. I know it. No, I really do. I know that you were thrown out. I'm going to be nice about it, but you had to get out of your space, and you had to move.
I did
on short notice, and you had a commitment to me, and you kept it, and I so appreciate it. And now you are in your new trailer space, which is great. Which is great. So welcome and thank you. And you know what? You've been doing this. I mean, as Mark pointed out, you've been doing this for 26 years.
Yeah, great.
And we talked about it earlier. You and I go back 24 or 25 of those 26 years.
Grown up together.
I'm 100%. 100%. But you know what, Mychal, tell everyone, or tell me and tell everyone, how did you get involved in handmade binding? I mean, how did you do it? I mean, what did it for you?
Can I just correct one thing that you said? I didn't get kicked out.
What?
I mean, I did need to leave my old space because the rent was insane and COVID is weird. But I did move into these really awesome, cool, funky trailers, same landlords, and we'll show you pictures of those in a bit. But yes, I started making books as a business in 1994.
Wow.
But I graduated from design school in 1992 from Arizona State, and I had this desire to be a restoration architect. And so I thought before I go get my master's in restoration and preservation, I should know what an old building looks like. So I went backpacking around Europe for about 6 months and took a journal with me and was sketching all the old buildings.
Oh, really?
Backpack gets stolen in Rome about 5 months into the trip. And it was the backpack that had all my really important things in it, my passport and my Walkman and all of that. And so my journal was in there, went shopping for a new journal in Venice the next week, and met a guy who made journals like the ones that I make now, and he was teaching me to make them.
Oh, wow.
That was kind of the beginning. I mean, I certainly at the time didn't think I'm going to be a bookbinder. I still thought I was going to go home and go to grad school. But while I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go to grad school, I ended up making books for myself. And then people were like, oh, make one for me, make one for my mom, make one for my sister. And it just kind of grew and grew. And here I am. I never made it to grad school.
And everything is, well, I mean, what is available in stock is right behind you, obviously. Yeah. Mark, maybe we should, because I know we put together, you were good enough to put together some slides that kind of walk us through the history of Iona. So can we bring that up, Mark?
Yeah, I'll pop it up right now.
Yes. So this is where I am now. I'm in that little funky trailer. There's 8 of these over in East Austin in this complex. It's really fun and cool, full of artists. And I am in the one that the door opened there. That's where I am right now. That's my retail space.
That's very cool.
It's cool. It's really fun. And I'm surrounded by really cool artists. And then I have 2 trailers. I have one for retail and one for production, where I tear all the paper by hand and cut all the leather by hand and do the stitching and adding of the hardware and stuff. So I think we have a picture of the inside of each of those as well.
There we go.
So I'm sitting at that desk in the back there right now. And the other one where the paper is all stacked up on the shelves, that's paper that we've already torn, all Mychal's amazing paper. We tear it all by hand and fold it into little groupings called signatures. And we have 5 signatures in every book. So here's some bundles of paper. And then we wrap them together, and then we stitch them into leather later.
So, Michael, everything is hand torn by you. I mean, because I know the paper that the Legion bamboo that I made for you is not a deckled paper. So you actually tear it, fold it, and tear it.
Yeah, we have to tear the edges off, and then we tear everything to size by hand. We have a big. I think we have a photograph of paper tearing also that Mark has. But a friend of mine made a tool for me that where we lay the tool onto the paper.
Top, right above that, Mark. One above. Yeah, there it is.
Just above that. Keep going. One more. That's leather. Sorry, that one. Yeah. So the red tool there is like a big, really heavy piece of metal with a saw blade that we attached to it, and then we tear the paper against that saw blade. And
we did a test on it before, knowing that it had to be torn.
Right.
It tears pretty well.
Beautifully.
Yeah.
Beautifully. Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun. I mean, we tried lots of different techniques of cutting the paper and then roughing up the edges to give it that look, and just nothing works like actually wearing it.
Right.
The paper is amazing. I mean, the watercolor paper that I use from you guys, the hemp paper and the bamboo paper and the black paper, the color plan paper, we tear all of that by hand.
Oh, unbelievable. Mark, can you go to an earlier slide after the store? So these are some of the books, but let's talk about, because I know we went through a process, Michael. We went through a process of picking out papers that work.
Right.
And you have, you had certain characteristics and certain qualities that had to be in place.
Right.
And you can talk about it because,
Yeah. So we definitely wanted a paper that didn't bleed at all, so that my clients could use because most of them are just using them for writing.
I think we lost your audio, Michael.
There.
I'm back.
I don't know why it keeps popping off. So all the people that are using them, they need to be able to write with a pen that's not going to bleed through the paper.
So you need to, and sometimes they use fountain pen as well.
Right. So the fountain pen works really beautifully on the bamboo paper, but the handmade papers, some people's pens didn't like the texture of the handmade paper.
Yeah.
So they wanted, that's why I ended up starting to use the bamboo paper, because for a long time, I only used the Indian handmade watercolor paper and the Indian handmade hemp. And people love those with just like a Uniball pen, Uniball Vision, amazing. So we use these because they're waterproof, and you could do a sketch on the watercolor paper or on the hemp paper and then watercolor right over it. And because this is waterproof ink, it all worked so beautifully together.
And you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, like me, you have a focus group that you go to, and they say yay or nay on substrate.
Yes. So I, for a long time, we were going back and forth at the watercolor paper, that handmade watercolor paper, and my friend Benno and my friend Pomona, they're both watercolor artists, teachers, and I would send them samples and say, what do you think of this one? And they'd be like, this one's like this, it's not so great, or it's like sitting on top of the paper, or it's soaking in too much. And they would tell me exactly, excuse me, what they wanted. Right. And then I would tell you, and you would make it happen, because you're magic.
Yeah. Well, we actually made a sheet of paper for you.
Exactly. Yeah. The bamboo was the last one that I took on, because some people did want to be able to use colored pencils and fountain pens and watercolor. And so the bamboo has been amazing for.
Wow, look at this. This is
that's my friend.
What is this?
My friend.
This is on an earlier version of some watercolor paper that we got from India for you.
Exactly. Yeah, Benno has been using my books since about 1996, 1997, ever since I started getting the Indian handmade watercolor paper from you. And he is a genius, and he's kind and lovely human, and he uses a Uniball. And all of that was with a Uniball pen and then watercoloring right over it. And he loves it.
I mean, it's not even ruled, and look how neat the writing is in the journal.
He's a retired architect, and he takes groups to Italy every other summer and teaches them watercolor journaling.
Really? Wow. Great.
Off your paper every time.
Great. So these are some of the tools for what?
So we have in there just plain old X-Acto knives and awls. The awls are the little pokey things that we poke holes into the leather and poke holes into the paper with these hand tools. We don't have any machinery that's doing any of the binding. We're doing it.
This is all by hand. Everything by hand.
Right. I mean, I've tried automating certain aspects of it, but nothing looks right or works right or lasts the same. So we just keeping it simple. We stitch them together with hemp twine that is waxed. So everything is stitched with those little tiny needles that you see underneath the holes. That white thing is a bone folder. That's what we use when we fold the paper in half, and then we make it a crisp fold with that bone folder.
So, Mychal, it's a process. I mean, it's assembly line type of process where you cut, you tear the paper, you prepare the signatures, and then you put it all together.
Well, I have two assistants that help me, and so we'll spend one of them will be spending a whole day tearing paper, and the other one will spend a whole day cutting leather. And then we stack all the paper and leather up, and then we start pulling oh, this paper looks good with this leather and this hardware. We about 10 years ago, we started putting hardware on them instead of just doing the leather closure. This is the way the monks used to make them centuries ago with a leather.
Right.
And now I'm doing them a little bit fancier. I mean, I still do them this way, but we also.
I want to talk about that. Now let's talk about the leather for a second.
Okay.
These are all the leathers, because I have a few of these albums and they're unbelievable. Your leather choices, how? I mean.
So I strive to be as eco-friendly as possible. So we're not using paper made out of trees, and we are using as much surplus leather as we can. So most of the leather that we're using is leftover from other industries. So handbag makers, boot makers, belt makers. If there's a scar or a scratch or an imperfection, at all, the larger industries don't want to use those hides, and so they set them aside. They don't want to work their big machinery around those imperfections. And since we're cutting everything out by hand, we actually try to highlight those. Actually, this book that I just pulled out a second ago, I noticed has a brand on the back of it. It's like an M for Mychal.
Oh, wow.
But we try to highlight those things. We try to highlight imperfections because that's called character.
Well, Mychal, let me ask you, do you do special orders or commission work or specials,
All the time. So that's a lot of what we're doing right now is a lot of custom orders, is already getting orders for Christmas for people will buy special books for their entire family, for all their grandchildren, and have their names put on them. And so, I get to do a lot of.
This is a good time to mention, and it'll come up. It'll be at the end of the segment that you're offering a 20% discount, and Christmas is right around the corner, and it's a perfect gift. I mean, I have to tell you, pull one of those, pull one of the ones with the, and I want to talk about the Clasp. Can you pull one off the shelf or?
Yeah. Let me grab one.
Yeah.
So this is one of the most popular ones. This is the kind that you got most recently.
Right. Tell me the history behind that lock or that clasp.
So this is a door hinge from the late 1800s. It's Victorian. So this is pulling some of my love of architecture into my love of bookbinding. So these are all attached with hand hammered copper rivets. So those
fabulous,
are
fabulous. Wow.
And
by the way, that flyleaf was that was the mango, right? Banana, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I've been using this since.
Great look. Great look.
Yeah, and this is the bamboo paper, which I love.
So the history of the clasp is, and you buy them in bulk?
Well, I find them all over the country because I drive to art shows all over the country, and I stop at flea markets and antique shops and junk shops and so forth. And I usually find them all rusty. And I think I have a picture of one that I'm about to start sanding, and it is totally rusty and covered in like years and years of paint. Yeah.
There it is.
So you can see how filthy I get when I'm.
So how do you get that? How do you clean it?
So
you got a wire brush.
Yeah, so that's about halfway through the process, actually. That's why my hands are filthy. They come to me sometimes and they have been painted over by years and years of people painting the door and then painting right over the door hinge. And because there's probably lead paint, I have to do it outside with a big mask on. And then I take a palm sander and I just sand and sand and sand until I get the top layer of the paint off to reveal the pattern. And you can see on the right-hand side there that the patterns on these are absolutely gorgeous.
The ones to the right, Mychal, look like the ones on the left?
Yeah, so the one on the left actually has more paint on it. So the one on the right, most of those just had rust.
I got it.
We'll see a little bit of the rust underneath, but I sand them to reveal the design.
It's such a luxury look. I mean, antique and luxury look.
That's the 1800s. I mean, they were mass produced in the 1800s, but they are, 140, 150 years old. So they're gorgeous. I love them so much. And that there's a lot of them in that one photograph look very similar to each other, but there's a lot of different patterns from that time period that are just stunning. I love it.
Do you have anybody, because I know you've mentioned to me that you had some celebs that found you. And
yeah, well, and so Willie Nelson has one, Anne Rice has one, Jennifer Aniston bought a whole stack of them back in the late 90s when I was selling them at a store. So I didn't get to meet her, but the people at the store called me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Jennifer Aniston just bought every book we have." And that was when she was married to Brad Pitt still. And so I was like, Brad Pitt has one of my books now, I bet. So I thought that was cool.
There's a question from Angie who wants to know about the artist community that you mentioned in Austin. What's the name of the artist community?
Oh, it's Canopy. So it's a complex that used to be an old Goodwill hanger, one of their blue hangers that they have that you buy stuff by the pound. It's the last stop on the Goodwill train. And they knocked that down, or maybe they kind of refurbished it and turned it into art studios. And so it's kind of the center of we have a studio tour here in Austin called the East Austin Studio Tour that's been going since 2003. And when we started it, there were 28 of us on the tour, and I was on it that year. And now there's over 500 artists involved.
Wow.
And where I am now is the hub of everything arts. There's tons of amazing stuff here.
Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that you do a lot of shows. I mean, pre-pandemic, you traveled everywhere. I mean, really. How has the pandemic helped you? I mean, not helped you, but Has it changed? How has it changed your mode of business? Are you doing more online now? Do you notice that?
Yes, I'm doing more online, and I sleep more, honestly. So yeah, I was doing fine art shows that were all juried art.
Well, that's a great shot. Now, in this shot, Mychal, there is some large albums here, or is that just the way it's portrayed in the picture? I mean,
ones. The largest ones I usually take on the road with me are 11 inches wide by 15 inches tall.
Wow, that's a big journal.
Those are photo. Most of those are photo albums.
Talk to me about the photo journals. I mean, now that we mention it.
Yeah. So I do photo albums. So here's one. Let's see. So it's the color plan paper.
The ebony, right?
Ebony. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so we give people the little photo mounting corners to attach them. And then this
Which is the old style of photo albums.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I only do old style.
Yeah. Well.
And then this paper we just started using recently. So remind me, Mychal, what it's called. It's
the ice pearlescent.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love it. So
it's
pretty.
Italian paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we put in between the black pages to protect the photos from damaging each other. So
great idea.
So this is the smallest size we make. The hold 4x6 per page, and then we make them all the way to.
Now that's a different tie, a different closure, right?
Yeah. So this is a strapped closure, but then we put a little. This is a rosette and a scutcheon. It's the back plate from a doorknob.
Oh.
Also from the 1800s. So it's basically the same as the leather strap closure. So you get the traditional tie closure, but a little more.
I'm noticing the texture of the leather. I mean, it's incredible.
This
really. I mean, so luxury.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful gift.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
and
do
stitching, Mychal, the stitching on the spline. Now that's hand done.
Yeah. So all the holes are poked into the leather, and holes are poked into the paper. And then one long piece of twine that's going through the paper and through the leather and back out into and back out, and then over to the next group. And
a process, a truly handmade process.
Yeah. And then they're way more durable than glue bound books. So there's no glue involved in the process. So glue bound books, I mean, that's the whole history of this style of bookbinding, is that the monks used to make them to copy scriptures into, because books were too rare or too fragile to take out of the libraries. And so they needed something really durable that they could take into the library, hand copy everything, and then walk out with it and carry it for the rest of their lives. And so they're pretty much indestructible. I mean, I did just fix one the other day, honestly. I think in 26 years, I've only had to repair like 4 or 5 books. And all but one of them were because somebody's dog grabbed it off the coffee table and started
chewing on it. Yeah.
But then I repair them free of charge, and they're usually pretty easy to repair. So
it's a real process. It is a real process.
Real deal.
Yeah. Amazing.
So these pictures show the me marking. The picture on the right is me marking the holes in the paper, in the bundle of paper, and lining them up with the holes in the leather. And then I go through and poke through all of those. And then the picture on the left is, just how hard you have to pull to make it really tight and really strong. So.
Beth asks us if there's a name of the style of binding that you're using.
Yes, it is called the long stitch. And I didn't know that until the internet, told me that. The guy that I learned from in Italy did not tell me any of that information, because I wasn't really like his student. I was just, hanging out with him at his shop, and he was learning how to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, I was from Arkansas, and this was so romantic to me, to be in Italy and to be in a bookbind shop. It just seemed like something out of a novel. And I was like, And he took a liking to me because I was so enthusiastic, and though he didn't speak any English and I spoke some really rough Spanish, and I could use a few Spanish words and he could kind of understand what I was saying because it's similar enough. But we totally had a great time. And like I said, I certainly wasn't like asking him questions like, I'm going to be a bookbinder. I was just like, oh, this is cool. And then started making them for fun. And
yeah.
so,
And
yeah, the internet taught me that it was the long stitch.
wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow. So let's say you can get on the road again.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a while. We don't know. I mean, is that something you want to do? Because I know you enjoy traveling. You enjoyed going to different cities. You enjoyed the camaraderie with other vendors. I mean, you're going to still want to do that.
I do. I think that the pandemic has made all of us kind of rethink the way we do our lives. And because I started my business pre-internet, I found out from other artists at farmers markets, like, where's the next show, or where do you do a show? And so we would find things out in a different way. It was more word of mouth and, Googling where's a cool show that in a city that I want to go to. So I think that it was like the frog in the boiling water, like we didn't realize, like, we're just like running to stand still. We were all doing every show, and we were also kind of like farmers, and that we were like totally dependent on the weather, because all of my shows except for my Christmas show were outdoor shows, and they were all really nice, very competitive shows to get into. And so you'd apply for them hoping to get in, and then you'd get in and you'd be like, I have to do it, even though my whole summer is jam-packed already. I have to do it because I've never gotten into this show before.
Right.
And you're running. And then the pandemic happened, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never had 2 months in my house without packing a suitcase in 26 years.
I know.
And I'm like, things could be different. And you have time to think about what you really want for that next phase. So I'm really excited. I mean, I loved my space that I was in before. I had 1,100 square feet, a beautiful retail space, and lots of foot traffic. But $4,000 a month rent, my friend and I figured out that I had to sell like $90,000 worth of books just to cover the rent.
Right.
And so every year. So now I'm in these funky little trailers, and I have about 320 square feet total between the two of them. And so I don't have to work so hard. And that's kind of cool. And so I can focus on maybe new types of books.
Well, that's what that was my next question, Mychal. I mean, where do you want to go from here? I mean, given the pandemic and what it has really forced everybody into doing, everybody is online. You must have an online presence. I mean, and your albums are just so perfect for an online purchase. Absolutely perfect. How do you want to expand that?
I want to scratch and sniff screen. So people can smell them.
Well, that's true, because the leather is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that people say when they walk into my studio is they say, oh, it smells so good in here.
Right.
And that's the first, part of the seduction. People are like, oh my gosh, I'm totally gonna buy these. But I think, I don't know. I mean, because I'm a bookbinder and I'm doing such old school stuff, it's been hard for me to, like, I was one of the last people I knew to accept credit cards. I was one of the last people I knew to get a website or an Instagram page and all of that. Like, I'm just a slow to adopt the new fangled ways of doing things, but I know that that's the way I have to do it. My boyfriend is always, I mean, he's a music producer and writer, and he's got to stay up on what's hip and what's happening. And I have to get better at it. So
you want to share some of the growth that, I mean, where you want to be with some of these albums? I mean, do you want to use you want to use a different cover? You want to use some of the substrates? I mean, what are your thoughts?
As far as what I want to do next with my books, I don't know. I want to do some more one-of-a-kind books. I mean, a lot of my books are one-of-a-kind in that I'm using hardware that's not reproducible necessarily anymore. Well, because, you know, they're 150 years old. So each one might be the last piece of hardware that I ever found like that. Like this is an Icebox hinge. That was
wow, that's great.
Years old. But like I'm constantly trying to find new ways to embellish the books and make them more beautiful, but without making the beauty just superfluous and just, I don't know.
You want to get more into custom, you think? More commission, custom work?
Yes. And we've started doing more like orders for like companies. Like there was a medical research company in Oklahoma that just bought 50 of our books with their logo on it to give to all the people that all their clients.
Now the logos you apply with what? Is it a stamp or is it a
laser cutting machine that burns the logo in?
Oh wow!
Yeah. So we're still experimenting with that. I mean, we did those. We've worked with a couple of other artists doing collaborations with making little tiny books for their business with their logo, and we're still playing around with that. I just want them to be usable. I mean, the whole point of I mean, I'm not trying to make art necessarily. I'm trying to make
a keepsake.
Yeah, a keepsake, something that people are going to pour their soul into, put the photograph of their grandchildren into, take on a really special trip, take on their honeymoon. Something that's going to be passed down for generations.
A diary. A diary album.
Do what?
It's a diary.
Yes. Yes. And so I want it to be something that, I mean, there's like, let me show you the most beautiful one for me right now. Is this one.
Wow, look at that. Wow.
This is one that I made with a piece. This piece on the spine is covering up the stitching that is actually underneath this piece of leather. But this is a piece that I picked up in Saigon. My mom and I went on a trip to Southeast Asia.
I remember that trip.
Yeah. And so we went down this little alley where they were selling antiques where none of the tourists were and nobody spoke English. And I found two pieces in this one little shop. And I honestly don't even know what they were, but they were antiques hanging from a little string up on the wall. And so I cleaned them up a little bit and attached them. But I mean, this isn't something you're going to throw in your backpack, right?
No, but it's a keep. But now, how many signatures are in there?
This one has 10 signatures. Normally they just have 5. They're usually half this thick.
Right.
But I had to make it fatter for this to fit on the spine. So, and then this again is an Icebox hinge and an antique padlock. This is a padlock.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It comes with a key. So we slice a little slot. Can you see that? Slice a little slot into the Icebox hinge so that it fits over that piece. So it can be used with the padlock.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Super fun. So this is one of my more special pieces that are really.
Now, how long does it take to produce something like that one?
A long time.
It's a long time.
Well, because all of these are hand hammered copper rivets, so I have to like space them perfectly and then attach them, and they're all hand hammered. Yeah. So it takes. I would say that one took several days.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's priced to reflect that.
I am sure.
That was actually $1,200, which is the exact amount to buy a plane ticket back to Vietnam.
Mark, do we have some other slides? I think
we do. We have some slides on the Legion bamboo. I know you touched on it in the very beginning.
Yes.
And as I pop this up here, I also have a question earlier on from Alvin about the bleed through. I know you've tested a lot of different papers and how that factors into the choices that you make.
Yeah. So I, like I said, I definitely am not ever going to use a paper that allows the ink to bleed through. And that is why I have been sticking with these 3 papers over the years. The watercolor paper, those are bamboo in those, because usually most of the fancier books that I make, I fill with the bamboo paper because it's the most versatile. And then people can use it however they want, because the bamboo paper, you can do colored pencil, you can do micro tipped pen, you can do fountain pen, you can do a light watercolor. And so you're buying a, $500 to $1,200 book, and you can do whatever you want. If I had just put the watercolor paper in it, they might not be able to use their fountain pen or their colored pencils. As
the beauty, and also the beauty of the bamboo, I will add, is it is somewhat two-sided. So you'll have a texture, like a cold pressy texture, watercolor on one side, and slightly smoother on the reverse.
So this is this customer, Derry Cabrera, who is not on social media, and I was lucky enough that she was so excited by the bamboo paper when she received the book. She also was asking me about the origin of my business name, Iona. And so I was telling her about the island of Iona off the west coast of Scotland. It's where the Book of Kells was written. And so I was telling her about that and telling her how beautiful it was. And then I didn't even visit the island until 22 years into my business. And I was very glad that I loved the island because it would have sucked to get all the way over there and go, oh, this place is weird. I'm going to have to change the name of my business. But she, after I told her that, we were exchanging some emails. She did this on the
bamboo.
Yeah, and that's an 11-inch by 15-inch book.
Wow,
I believe.
Wow.
And
that's a graphite drawing.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. She's phenomenal. So that's a photograph that she found on the web of the Abbey on the island of Iona. So that's why she chose that to draw. So,
I mean, just talking about the bamboo for a second. I mean, this is a paper that is not just for albums, or not suitable just for albums. I mean, it's available in, I believe it's a 26 by 40 that
that's right.
Yeah. And it's suitable for so many different mediums, really. And watercolor, as you mentioned, pencil, pen and ink, colored pencil.
Right.
And also printmaking. I mean, it's a great printmaking sheet. And it is very eco-friendly.
Hooray. That's why I chose it, because I had been doing the handmade hemp and the handmade watercolor paper for, probably I can't remember when I started getting the bamboo from
a long time ago.
And when I was using these other two papers exclusively, people kept saying, do you have another paper that's smoother that I could use my pencils on, or I could use graphite on? And I was like, well, I need it to be eco-friendly to go along with my business model, because I'm using these surplus leathers and the papers were made from recycled fabrics. I was like, and I don't want to get something that's just like a cotton sheet, because cotton can be, polluting. I really wanted something that was super eco-friendly. And when you presented me with this bamboo, I was just blown away. It's like, yes, finally.
But we had to have it tested.
Yes. Right? Yep. And so I sent some of that to my friend Benno that did those other photos that you saw earlier.
Right.
This is one of his books that has images of his trip to New Zealand. This is on the watercolor paper, but he's always been the one who tested my watercolor paper. And so I sent him some of the bamboo, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is great if you do light watercolor, but I can do much more detailed sketching.
Right.
It.
What are we looking at now?
Oh, that's the hemp paper. So that's my friend Mikey, who's amazing. We have the same name, but she goes by Mikey. She saw one of Benno's books at my booth one Christmas, and she and her husband were going on a safari that next year, and she really wanted to take a book, but she really loved the color and the texture of the hemp paper, and it just looked more like Africa to her. Right. So she didn't have any drawing or painting experience, and she got a book called The Decorated Page, I believe it was, and taught herself how to do all these drawings of animals and painting. And so she just two examples of what she did in her hemp paper book, and that's watercolor. The one on the right is all watercolor, and then the one on the left is Uniball pen and a little bit of watercolor.
Very nice. And this is handmade in India for you.
Yes.
And it has a little bit of fiber in it.
Right.
I think it's a combination of jute and hemp.
Jute and hemp, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I love it. I've been using it. I think I got the watercolor paper from you in like 1995 or 96, and then maybe the hemp paper the next year.
You're dating me. Don't do that.
I'm dating myself.
What do we have here?
So that's the watercolor paper. That's the paper that you have custom made for me. I think there's some pictures. I don't know what else we have pictures of, but yeah. I've made the great thing about making journals instead of just, I mean, art, you definitely have a connection with the artist. I think making journals it's a really personal thing. And so people really, they relate to me and I relate to them because I've always kept a journal, and we end up going, oh my gosh, travel, or oh my gosh, writing, or oh my gosh, emotion, and so we end up just really bonding. So I've ended up making a lot of really, really good friends out of my customers, and
and repeat customers too. I mean,
tons. Yeah. A huge percentage of my customers are repeat customers.
Yeah, I mean, they're not tearing. Believe me, they're not tearing out a page and framing it. I mean, when they're done, they'll get another one.
Exactly. And a lot of people some people who buy my books repeatedly aren't even using them themselves. They gave them one graduation gift, and it was such a huge hit. They're like, oh my gosh, that's easy. I just keep going back to Mychal for more graduation gifts or more wedding gifts or whatever. Right. And they just, they're like, it's always everyone's favorite gift. I'm like,
so it begs to repeat the fact that you are offering 20% discount.
Yes.
On standard stock or
on everything on the website. So, and I even have a section on my website that's already 20% off, because those are books that I would normally take to an art show, and people can touch them and feel them and go, oh yeah, this one's awesome. It's for me. It has this little cool scar or scratch on it. And the scarred and scratched ones, I usually don't sell online, but because I don't have art shows this year, I'm selling them at 20% off, because it's just hard when you're selling them online and people are like, oh, I expected something perfect. I'm like, well, none of mine are actually perfect.
Well, handmade, I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, handmade is not production. I mean, it's one of a kind.
Right. Yeah. So what I was going to say is there's that 20% off section on my website. And so if you use that code Legion20 with no spaces in between, then you get 20% off those too, if you want.
Mark, do we have that page or no?
Yeah, I just put it up into the chat window with the coupon code, and earlier on I put just the website, but I'll put the website back up there so you can automatically link. And while I have both of you, Diana has a question about the metal decorative pieces and how you attach it. Do you glue it? Do you sew it, rivet it?
They're attached with hand-hammered copper rivets. So let's see if I can show you again. So this one, these where you would normally put the screws that attach the door hinge to the door jamb, instead of screws, of course, I've used, these are copper rivets that I've dropped into a patina bath. So they're kind of a bluey green color. And you can see on the back, those have been hand hammered on. These are kind of patinaing on the back too. But yeah, so they're all attached with hand hammer copper rivets, so they're not going anywhere. And same with the Icebox hinges. Those are, let me grab one of those. So how about some purple?
That's a great color.
The whole shelf behind me is kind of blues and purples, and I do have a lot of browns and reds and stuff in other parts of the studio. But so yeah, so these are also all attached with little rivets.
Right.
Yep.
And every book comes with a little bit of a history.
Yeah, there's
Right.
a tag in the front. It tells you what kind of paper is in your book, because I do have those 4 different types of papers. And it talks about how the monks used to make them in Italy, and it talks about the fact that, you know, what your paper is made out of, what it's good for,
Right.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Great.
And it comes with a little bit of extra love.
Right.
There was an earlier question. I'm trying to look for it now because there's a perfect segue about what the monks did to the leather to keep it from deteriorating over a long period of time. That was Jean who asked that. What did they do to keep it from deteriorating? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors that the monks that they used to pee on the leather to tan it, but I don't know.
Is that a tanning process?
I think that it might have been. I never actually looked it up, but I've heard lots of people mention it over the years at my booth. They're like, "Oh, don't they used to pee on the leather?" I don't know. Have to look that up. But my books, I mean, this is an oil. Most of the leather that I'm using is an oil tanned leather, and so it doesn't need any kind of conditioner or anything. Like I said, I've been using my own books since the first one I made, which was in April of '94. And I'm going to grab it off the shelf real quick and I'll show you. So I took the strap off of it. It's a long story why I took the strap off of it, but that's not interesting right now.
No, this is an original, an oldie.
Yeah, this is the original journal. So you can see the patina of it, and it kind of curls around the edges, and it just has it looks like an antique.
That's a great look.
Yeah. So they just get better. I definitely tell people not to put any kind of leather conditioner on it. I mean, you just have to love it. You just have to fondle it.
Well, from the oil, from the oils in your hand. I mean,
oil in your hands. That's all it is. Just gets better and better. That's the idea. And all of these are that same way. Some of them will start off really shiny, you know, like that.
Yeah.
Shiny. And you just fondle it a bunch and it's just going to get really, really delicious. That's the idea.
And the leather quality consistent?
Yeah. I've been doing it a long time. So when that one is funny. So that is the very first one that I ever made with using an Icebox hinge. So see, there's that little hole in the center where that padlock is attempting to go through.
Right.
So that's an Icebox hinge. And I thought it was a hasp because I had this like brainstorm. Like I want to, you know, have the old, like when I was a kid, I had a diary that had a little lock on it. And I was like, oh, I want to do locks, but more industrial looking. And I found that Icebox hinge thinking it was just a decorative hasp and made that book, photographed it, and then went around to all these junk shows saying, where can I find a hasp like this? And finally a guy was like, honey, that's not a hasp. It's a hinge from an Icebox. It just happened to have a hole in the perfect size and the perfect place for you to use it that way. And I was like, oh no, I thought it was a hasp. I was so excited. And then my friend was like, honey, we can make a hole in an Icebox hinge. And so that's how we ended up, you know, like I said, on this one, this is an Icebox hinge. I mean, this is an Icebox hinge. We just cut a little slot into them. So that's my kind of like signature thing that I do now. But that was where it all started. Right. So accident. Right. And then going out shopping for all of those Icebox hinges, I ended up finding all these door hinges and was like, those are really pretty. I wonder how I could. And then I had this like, you know, light bulb moment. I was like, I wonder if I could attach one side and then the other side is on the other flap and you just pull the pin
and you figured you did it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
do you have a good supply of them? I mean, or is it always a constant search?
It's always a constant search. Yeah. Right now I have a really good supply because I thought I was going to be doing art shows all year and I had a really good run of shows planned. And so I really stocked up. So I'm ready for Christmas, y'all.
I mean, it's such a great corporate gift. I mean, it really is, Mychal. I mean, you know, from my vantage point, I mean, corporation, I think I kept one and I gave the rest away.
Rest away.
As gifts, and unbelievable appreciation for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you almost don't even want to use it. I mean, it's.
Yeah, unfortunately, I hear that a lot. People are like, oh, they come by my booth and they're like, I love these. And they'll buy another one. And I'm like, oh, you already filled the other one up? And they're like, no, but I pet it a lot. I'm just scared to write on that first page. I'm like, get over it. Get over it.
Do you use a specific weight of leather, Diana asks, or if it's, do you mix it up?
I use 5-ounce leather. 90% of the time. Every once in a while, if I find an absolutely gorgeous leather, I'll use a 4-ounce. And the ounce, I don't even know how they measured that, but there's like a little gauge thing that like a caliper.
Yeah.
They put on it. And so like this is a little stack of leather. This is a 5-ounce leather. And I think all of these are 5-ounce. This one might be 5.5 ounce. But
Wow.
But the 4-ounce ones are just a little bit too floppy sometimes, but they're just gorgeous. And a lot of upholstery leathers are 3-ounce or 4-ounce because they're more supple, because they're thinner and they can wrap around corners, and be folded and tucked. And so they make them just really luxurious, especially like the Italian upholstery leathers are just phenomenal. And so I end up making some coupons.
Now, these leather remnants are from what country, basically?
From all over the country. I'm just gonna grab another one like this one is this little furry book. Isn't he cute?
Oh my God.
Very petable. But it's so thin, it's like 3 ounces. So I have to back it with a thicker leather and then line it with a third leather. And then that's why it's kind of feels round, because it's like
fabulous.
Yeah.
Now, that was a custom book.
This was not a custom book. I made it just for sale, but I've made lots of these custom for people. It's got that gold and it's got the furriness, and so a lot of the nice Texas ranch ladies like it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but the leather, to answer your question earlier, Michael, a lot of the leather is it's hard to say exactly where it originally originated, but the companies that I'm like the boot makers and the belt makers and the bag makers that I'm getting them from are all based in the States.
Got it. Mark, we have any other questions?
Yeah, we do. Jean, since we're talking about leather, Jean wants to know if you custom dye any of the leather that you use.
I used to, but that's messy. And so I also don't want to put extra chemicals out into the world. I don't want to buy more chemicals or use more chemicals. So so all of these leathers behind me, these are all leathers that were originally meant to be a handbag or some funky cowboy boots. And so I try to just stick to what's surplus out there in the world.
Did Willie Nelson have you match his boots or what?
Unfortunately, Willie Nelson himself didn't buy my book directly from me. Somebody bought it for him, but I hear he liked it. You know who did buy my books directly from me is Zach Brown, who I never even heard of when he came to my booth at New Orleans Jazz Fest, but he did. He bought a stack of them, and I hear he has them at his, he has like a music studio in Nashville, and he's using them to sign in book.
This is a market that you have to tap into.
Yeah. Musicians.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My boyfriend's a musician. He should be marketing them to all of his friends.
I agree.
Beth has a question about the signatures, if you're sewing them in with the wax thread.
Yes.
Linen thread.
Waxed hemp twine.
Hemp twine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because hemp is super duper durable. I think the first ones I made were with some sort of linen twine, but those tended to fray a little bit over time, and the hemp has been amazing. It's hard to find it waxy enough, so we hand wax it. We have a big block of beeswax, and then we run the hemp twine through the beeswax. We tried to develop all sorts of machines to do it for us, and that never worked.
You don't use dental floss?
Might try that
Mark, any other questions?
No, I think that's it. I think there's only one slide I didn't show, which I can pop up here because we only have 2
We don't
minutes
have
or
too much
so left.
time, so
So let me pop this up and maybe
Yeah.
there's something that you can discuss about this.
Oh,
Wow.
well, there you can see I have on the left is a tray of Icebox hinges that have already been cleaned up and the slot cut into them. And then I spray them with a spray enamel, a clear enamel, to make sure that they don't tarnish or anything else over time. And then in the center, that's me setting a rivet on my little station, and then the finished product after I attached that door hinge.
Fabulous.
In the middle. Yeah.
Fabulous.
I put a lot of love into them. I really enjoy all of it.
A lot of time, a lot of love goes into every book. I know it. I feel it.
And I love you, Mychal. I feel like I said, we've grown up together, and I feel every time I talk to you, I feel like I have my own personal paper man. It really makes me feel special, and you probably do.
Well, you know, we just have to figure out how you want to grow and what you want to do, and what are the markets you feel you want to get into. You know, with some albums.
Corporate gifts.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure you've got lots of corporate friends, so
yeah.
Hook me
Well,
up.
I think the discount, will be enticing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So, Mark, are we okay on time?
Yeah, we have 1 minute left about, and we can finish with Jean has a question about the lifetime guarantee of the books.
So as long as I'm alive, I will repair them. Like I said, I've only repaired 4 or 5 or 6. All but one were from a dog chewing on the spine. And one time it was the movers dropped a box and then backed over their wedding album. And then that was fun trying to.
I never knew you did that. I never knew you had.
Nobody else knows how to make them, so I have to. They send it back to me, and I fix it.
Never knew you did that, Mychal. I have to tell you. I mean, given what I said in the earlier when we opened, being taken away, the space being taken away, and the move, and all the energy that you put into your product is just amazing. You work so hard. You produce an unbelievable product, and I just thank you. I really appreciate it.
I love you. I wouldn't be here without you, truthfully.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.